That you have these two layers of your experience, having had an eating disorder, being a highly sensitive person, and now working with clients in this space, what link do you see between having the trait and then developing an
Yeah.
eating disorder? Are there connections there?
Yeah, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
So there are certain factors that will predispose somebody to an eating disorder. HSPs have a lot of those, but
Mm-hmm.
also factors that we call maintaining factors, which keep the eating disorder going once it's taken root. So also common with a lot of HSPs, and I'll go over a couple of each of those.
Yeah, that'd be helpful. Thank
So
you.
yeah, the for predisposing factors, one of the big ones is harm avoidance.
Mm,
So
yes.
being
Yeah.
highly sensitive, we can really easily, with our depth of processing, spot potential areas of harm
Yeah.
and then what we might do to avoid that. And of course, the feeling of harm, whatever it is very deep, very painful. And for a lot of HSPs, harm avoidance starts to show up as self doubt,
Hmm.
which, of course, as I know you and every other HSP has heard, you're so sensitive, you're too
Yes.
sensitive, you're overreacting, it's not that
Mm-hmm.
big a deal. Like, of
Mm-hmm.
course, we'll start to doubt ourselves and mistrust our own signals.
Mm-hmm.
So, kind of piggybacking off of harm avoidance is perfectionism, and those go
Yes.
hand in hand. The HSP can also really easily spot how something can be made better, and
Yes.
better in quotes.
Yes.
And to avoid that potential harm, they'll seek perfectionism, and sometimes that's through the way they interact with food, or will focus on a number on the scale. Um, but perfectionism is so tricky because it's self-perpetuating, and when your goal is actually something that's unattainable, you've got plenty of opportunities to beat yourself up under the guise of, if I hate myself enough, I can turn into magically a version of myself that then I can love.
Mm-hmm.
Very dangerous game,
Very.
because that's not how it works.
Right. Right.
Yeah. And let's see. So, one of the maintaining factors, like I talked about with my own experience, is that need for relief or distraction. And I think highly sensitive people are always going to be looking for ways to cope, in this overwhelming world. Whether they find healthy ways or not is
Mm-hmm.
another story. But food is a really easy coping tool for the management of food, right?
Mm.
It's
Mm-hmm.
readily
Yeah.
available. And, I want to say about that, like, using food to cope is okay. There's nothing
Mm.
inherently wrong with that,
Mm-hmm.
but it's important to have more tools than that.
Right. Right. We need other options.
Yeah. Just
Mm-hmm.
like how distracting is a valid form of
Mm-hmm.
coping, but we want more than just distracting in our
Yes.
toolbox.
Right.
Yeah. So that
Yeah.
that need for relief is definitely a big maintaining factor. Another one is isolation, and highly sensitive people don't necessarily isolate, but we have that need to take time to ourselves for
Yeah.
sensory rest, just to sort of recharge. And if
Mm-hmm.
there is an eating disorder in the mix or starting to take root, that healthy alone time can be hijacked and turned into isolation, because an eating disorder really needs isolation to thrive. And in
Right.
that isolation is where it starts to become a companion of sorts, like we talked
Mm-hmm.
about earlier with the
Mm-hmm.
relationship piece.
Mm-hmm.
So somebody might want to get rid of their eating disorder, but at the same time, they feel compelled to protect it at all costs, no matter
Right.
what,
Mm-hmm.
because it's a companion in a lot of
Right.
ways.